It's a Tuesday night. You're on the sofa, remote in one hand, probably something to eat in the other. You're watching something. Doesn't really matter what. You're barely paying attention. It's just on. And on the other side of the screen, something is paying very close attention to you. Not in a vague, oh well, targeted ads kind of way. Not that. I mean literally, right now, your television, the one you bought because it was a decent price and had good reviews, is taking a screenshot of its own screen every half a second, comparing that screenshot against a database of millions of hours of content, logging what it finds, and quietly sending it back to a server you've never heard of. Second by second, every show, every film, every YouTube video you cast from your phone, every embarrassing reality TV program you're going to deny watching in the morning. All of it logged, gone. Now, nobody hacked your TV, nobody broke in, nobody sent you a dodgy email. You weren't targeted, you just bought a television. So the question isn't really, is my TV spying on me? The question is, how did we let this happen? And the answer to that is one of the strangest stories of modern technology, because it involves decisions made over decades by companies, by regulators, by ordinary people, including, let's be honest, you and me, that each seemed, at the time, completely reasonable, until you see them together. For most of its existence, the television was a completely passive object. It received a signal, it displayed that signal. It had no opinion about what you were watching. It had no interest in you whatsoever. It was an appliance, like a toaster, except you sat in front of it for 4 hours every evening, and it shaped your entire understanding of the world. But otherwise, just like a toaster, arrived in people's homes in the 1950s. By the 1960s, 90% of American households had one, moving pictures in your living room, for free. At the time, that was considered an actual miracle. And critically, the television asked nothing in return. Yeah, there were adverts. The networks sold your attention to the advertisers. That's always been the deal. But the TV itself didn't know you were there. It broadcast to everyone. You just happened to be one of them. One directional. Signal comes in, picture goes out. End of transaction. This stayed true for decades. Through cable, VHS, DVD. Through the flat screen revolution of the early 2000s. When the television reinvented itself from a bulky glass box into a sleek slab on the wall, better picture, better sound, but the fundamental nature of the device did not change. It was still an appliance, still dumb, still passive, still, in an important sense, yours. That was about to change. In the early 2000s, the internet became the most important infrastructure in the world, and every device that could be connected to it was being connected to it. Your phone, your computer, eventually your thermostat, your fridge, your doorbell. The Internet of Things, they called it, though the Internet of everything we can monetize would be more accurate. The television was the obvious candidate. The pitch was simple and it was genuinely appealing. What if your TV could access Netflix directly? No separate box, no cables, YouTube, catch-up TV, everything without leaving your couch. This sounded like a convenience feature. It was not only a convenience feature, the first proper internet-connected smart TVs started appearing around 2007, 2008. Samsung, LG, Philips, premium products, expensive. The kind of thing tech enthusiasts bought to show off at dinner parties. But something was happening in the background. Manufacturers were starting to realise something. A television connected to the internet is not just a television anymore. It's a data collection device in your living room that you paid for, that you invited in. And the company that figured this out most aggressively wasn't Samsung, wasn't LG, wasn't Sony. It was Vizio. Vizio is not a glamorous company. Founded in 2002 in Irvine, California, $600,000 in seed money, their entire strategy was make televisions cheap, undercut the premium brands, win on price, and it worked. By 2007, Vizio was the #1 selling flat panel television brand in America. Not because they made the best TVs, because they made the cheapest ones that were still good enough. But here's the problem with being the cheapest option. The margins are brutal. Hardware is hard. Competing on price is a race to the bottom. So by the early 2010s, Vizio was looking for another way to make money from the TVs they were already selling. And someone had an idea. We know what these people are watching. Every TV we sell has a screen. Everything that appears on that screen, we can see it. What if we captured that, logged it, analysed it, sold it to advertisers who desperately want to know what people are actually watching? Not a sample, not a survey, actual real-time, second-by-second viewing data from millions of actual televisions in actual living rooms to an advertiser. That is almost priceless. So Vizio built it. The technology is called Automated Content Recognition, ACR. And it does exactly what it sounds like. Your TV captures what's on screen, a tiny image, a fingerprint of pixels, and compares it against an enormous database of known content. Movies, TV shows, adverts, sports. Think of it like Shazam, but for video. It identifies what you're watching within milliseconds and it logs it. Not just streaming, not just Vizio's own apps, everything. Broadcast TV, cable, your Xbox, your PlayStation, your Fire Stick, your laptop if you've plugged it in via HDMI. The TV doesn't care about the source, it's watching the screen. What is on the screen? It sees. February 2014, Vizio starts shipping TVs with ACR switched on by default. Not opt-in, default. Out of the box. Switched on. And for people who'd already bought a Vizio TV that didn't have ACR, Vizio pushed a software update to those sets remotely without asking and quietly switched it on. Now, to be fair, this was technically disclosed. It was in the privacy policy. There was a feature called Smart Interactivity in the settings menu, which is what ACR was hiding behind. Smart Interactivity, which the manual said would provide program offers and suggestions. Vizio had, by that point, stopped providing program offers and suggestions entirely. They'd removed the feature. What Smart Interactivity was actually doing was logging your viewing data and selling it. But it was disclosed in the settings, several menus deep, in small text, inside a document nobody reads. Perfectly legal, totally fine. Moving on. By the time anyone had noticed, Vizio had 11 million televisions collecting data, generating more than 100 billion data points per day. Let that sit there for a second. 100 billion per day. November 2015, ProPublica publishes a piece on exactly what Vizio is doing. Around the same time, researchers at Avast are analysing the network traffic coming out of Vizio televisions. Now, if you've never done this, and most people haven't, because most people have better things to do with their evenings, what you do is you set up a tool that sits between your TV and your router and watch what the TV is talking to, where it is sending data, how often, what's in those packets. What they found was that Vizio televisions were checking in with company servers constantly, not just when apps were being used, all the time, while watching cable TV through a separate box, while watching a DVD, while the TV was in standby. The findings spread quickly, and then the FTC started investigating. February 6, 2017, the FTC announces a settlement with Vizio. The headline number? $2.2 million. Vizio had collected data from 11 million televisions without consumers' knowledge or consent. And the penalty for that was $2.2 million. $2.2 million for 11 million televisions. That works out roughly 20 cents per TV. Truly, a devastating blow. Vizio didn't seem particularly devastated. In their official statement, their general counsel described the settlement as setting a new standard for best industry privacy practices, which is technically true, in the same way that a speed bump sets new standards for road safety. The settlement required Vizio to tell people they were collecting data, let people opt out, and delete data collected before March 2016. It did not require them to stop collecting data, just to be slightly more upfront about it. And here's where it gets genuinely strange, because after the settlement, after the FTC's fine, after the news coverage, Vizio didn't slow down. They accelerated. They rebranded the data operation as Inkscape, filed to go public, and in 2021, when they released their first earnings report as a public company, they disclosed something remarkable. In the first quarter of 2021, Vizio's data and advertising business generated $38.4 million in gross profit. Their hardware business, selling actual televisions, generated $48.2 million, nearly equal. And the data side was growing at 152% year on year. By quarter 3 of 2021, data had overtaken hardware. And in 2024, Vizio's final quarter as an independent company, the data platform made $115.8 million in gross profit. The hardware division selling televisions lost $6.7 million. By the end, Vizio was losing money on every television it sold, because the television wasn't the product, you were. February 2024, Walmart announces it's acquiring Vizio for $2.3 billion. Right, big company buys a TV brand. Seems fairly normal. But read what Walmart actually said about why they were buying it. They talked about Vizio's SmartCast operating system. They talked about 18 million active accounts. They talked about advertising revenue, a closed-loop commerce experience. They barely mentioned the televisions. Because Walmart didn't buy Vizio to make televisions. Walmart bought Vizio because it wanted access to what those televisions knew about you. Think about what Walmart already knows. It knows what you buy at Walmart, your purchase history, your payment method, your location, how often you shop. Now combine that with what your television knows, what you watch, your genres, your networks, what time you go to bed, what you put on when you're stressed, what you watch with your kids. Walmart can now close the loop. They can see that you watched an advert for a kitchen appliance, and then they can see whether you bought that at Walmart. They called this, in their press materials, enhancing the shopping journey. You might have a different word for it. By December 2024, the deal was done. Vizio is now a subsidiary of Walmart. 80% of Vizio households already shop at Walmart. The TV in your living room and the supermarket you buy your groceries from now share the same parent company, the same data infrastructure, and a very keen interest in your behaviour. This is, to be clear, completely legal. Now, I want to be fair here, because you might be thinking, right, okay, this is a Vizio problem. I don't own a Vizio. I've got a Samsung, an LG, a Sony. Yeah, about that. Every major smart TV manufacturer runs ACR. Every single one. Samsung calls their data operation Samsung Ads. LG has LG Ads Solutions. Roku, which powers millions of TVs across multiple brands, has its own ACR layer. TCL, Hisense, all of them. This is not a Vizio quirk. This is a business model. This is how televisions work. The hardware is subsidized. The data is the margin. And what does this data actually capture? Let me read you directly from the Texas Attorney General's lawsuit filed in December 2025. Quote, "This software can capture screenshots of a user's television display every 500 milliseconds, monitor viewing activity in real time, and transmit that information back to the company without the user's knowledge or consent. Every 500 milliseconds, twice a second, continuously." And it's not just TV shows. Same lawsuit, the technology captures security doorbell camera feeds, videos and photos sent to Google Cast or Apple AirPlay, data from devices connected to TVs, your doorbell camera footage on your TV screen, logged, sent, home security feed, logged, sent, your personal photos if you cast them from your phone, logged, sent. I'd like to give the manufacturers the benefit of the doubt and assume they're not actually storing your Ring doorbell footage in a database somewhere. But I would like them to tell me that clearly, not in a privacy policy. December 2025, the Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton files suits against 5 major TV brands simultaneously: Samsung, LG, Sony, Hisense, TCL. 5 lawsuits, 4 days. The Samsung suit alleged that Samsung TVs began ACR surveillance immediately, before the user had completed setup, before they'd agreed to anything, before they clicked a single button. The suits against Hisense and TCL raised a separate concern. Both companies have ties to the Chinese government, and China's national security law requires companies to share data with the government upon request. The suits allege that data collected from American televisions in American living rooms could be accessed by the Chinese Communist Party. Now, these are allegations in ongoing lawsuits, not proven facts, and the China angle is politically loaded in ways that should make you careful. But the core claim that your television is collecting data and sending it somewhere is not in dispute. The manufacturers don't dispute it. They just argue it's disclosed and consented to. We'll come back to consent. By early 2026, Samsung and LG had both reached settlements with Texas. Samsung agreed to stop collecting ACR data without explicit consent. LG agreed to display clear, prominent disclosures. The lawsuit against Sony, Hisense, and TCL was still active at time of recording. Right, so here's the thing. Every company involved in this will tell you the same thing when confronted with it. It's in the terms and conditions. You agreed to it, you consented. And I want to spend a minute on that word, consent, because it's doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. When Vizio first deployed ACR in 2014, here's how they told people. There was a pop-up notification. It read, "The Vizio privacy policy has changed. Smart interactivity has been enabled on your TV, but you may disable it in the settings menu. Then it timed out after 1 minute. The notification didn't say what smart interactivity was, didn't say data was being collected, didn't link directly to the settings to turn it off. Just said a policy had changed, gave you a website address and disappeared. The FTC put it plainly in their 2017 complaint. Consumers had no reason to expect Vizio engaged in second-by-second tracking of viewing data. The disclosure was vague and fleeting. The consent was not meaningful. But here's what I want you to think about. Even if the consent were clearer, even if there was a big banner that said your TV will now log everything you watch and sell it to advertisers, what would you actually do? Return the TV? Buy a different brand that also does this? Because they all do this. Just not have a television? This is where individual choice runs into a systems problem. We can talk about consent as if it's a real decision made by a free person, but in practice, consent mechanisms in consumer technology have been deliberately designed to be ignored. Privacy policies nobody reads. Terms of service that run to 40 pages. Settings menus buried 4 levels deep. Opt-outs that require 3 separate steps and might reset on the next software update. These are not accidents. There's a term for this: dark patterns. Interface design choices that technically offer you the option to opt out while making the option as invisible and inconvenient as possible, so that as few people as possible actually take it. And it works. When Vizio eventually made ACR opt-in after their 2017 settlement, 90% of users opted in. 90%, which the company cited as evidence that consumers are happy with the arrangement. When the alternative is unclear and the default is already switched on, 90% is not really a meaningful number, is it? Smart TVs with built-in data collection started shipping in meaningful numbers around 2010, 11, 2012. ACR in its modern form emerged around 2014. The FTC investigation started in late 2015, early 2016. There was a gap of several years where tens of millions of people bought televisions that were doing this, and nobody told them. So where was everybody? The FTC has broad authority to investigate unfair and deceptive trade practices, and they did eventually act. 2017, the Vizio settlement. But that fine was $2.2 million against a company generating hundreds of millions in data revenue, against a company that continued doing exactly what it had been fined for, just with marginally better disclosure. The US still does not have a federal data privacy law. At time of recording, that puts it behind the EU, the UK, Canada, Australia, Brazil, Japan, India, and quite a few others. The EU, for what it's worth, has GDPR, which came into force in 2018 and requires explicit, informed, freely given consent before data can be collected. Under GDPR, most of what Vizio was doing in 2014 would have been illegal. Under US federal law, most of it was fine. The technology press, to be fair, some of them were covering this. ProPublica ran pieces on Vizio in 2015. Security researchers were publishing findings. The story existed for people looking for it. But it didn't break through. Didn't become kitchen table conversation. It stayed in the tech press where it could be safely ignored by anyone who didn't really care. And the consumers, I'm going to include all of us here because I think it's the most honest part of the story. We wanted cheap televisions. We wanted Netflix built in. We accepted the terms of service we didn't read because the alternative was not using the product. We connected our TVs to Wi-Fi because they asked for it during setup, and it seemed fine. We just wanted to watch something. At each individual step, the decision made sense. Taken together, they added up to something none of us intended. This is how most surveillance infrastructure gets built. Not through dramatic moment of choice, but through 1,000 small, reasonable sounding decisions made by a lot of different people, none of whom thought they were building a mass surveillance system. They were just trying to sell televisions. Right, let me take a step back and actually explain what ACR is doing, because I think it's worth understanding. Not just as a privacy concern, but as a genuinely impressive piece of technology. Impressive in the way that a very sophisticated pickpocket is impressive. Two main flavours. Audio-based ACR works like Shazam. Your TV captures a short clip of audio from whatever's playing, converts it into a mathematical fingerprint, a unique signature based on acoustic characteristics of that audio. That fingerprint gets sent to a server, where it's matched against a database of millions of known audio fingerprints from every show, film, advert ever broadcast. Match found, content identified, logged. Video-based ACR works the same but with images. Your TV captures a frame, sometimes multiple frames per second, and converts it into a visual fingerprint. Pixel arrangement, color distribution, brightness, patterns. That becomes a signature matched against a reference database. Runs continuously in the background. Can't see it, can't hear it, no indicator light, just running. Now here's what makes this different from, say, Netflix knowing what you watch on Netflix. Netflix knowing what you watch on Netflix is, well, expected. You're using their service. ACR doesn't care about your source. Watching a DVD, ACR sees the screen. Blu-ray, ACR sees the screen. Old Skybox, ACR sees the screen. Raspberry Pi running Kodi, ACR sees the screen. Ring doorbell camera on your TV? You get the picture. So does your TV. The TV is watching the screen, whatever's on it. And then there's the rest of it. Beyond what you're watching, ACR-enabled TVs also typically collect IP address, MAC addresses of other Wi-Fi devices in range of your television, your TV's model number, your approximate location, what apps you've installed, how long you spend on each one. From the Vizio FTC complaint, the data was sold to third-party companies who then appended it with demographic information, sex, age, income, marital status, household size, education level. So even though Vizio insisted the data was never personally identifiable, no names, no email addresses, a data broker could take the anonymous device ID and match it against other data sets to build a complete profile. Anonymous data isn't really anonymous, it's pseudo-anonymous. And pseudo-anonymity is a speed bump, not a wall. So who buys this data and what do they do with it? Direct customers are advertisers and media companies. They want to know whether their TV advert actually works. Before ACR, measuring TV ad effectiveness was genuinely difficult. You relied on surveys, panel research, set-top box data covering only a small sample of the population. ACR changed that. Now you can know with reasonable precision how many households saw your advert, for how long, on what device, in what market. That's valuable. Television advertising is a multi-$100 billion industry globally. But the data doesn't stay with the TV manufacturers. Data brokers buy raw viewing data and aggregate it with data from other sources. Online browsing, purchase history, credit records, social media, behaviour, location data from mobile phones. They combine the streams, sell the profiles so your television tells an advertiser what you watch, your phone tells them where you go, your credit card tells them what you buy, your smart speaker tells them what you talk about, your fitness tracker tells them how you sleep. None of these data streams was collected for this purpose. Each one was collected for a legitimate seeming individual reason. But data brokers are in the business of combining streams, and what they can infer from the combined profile goes far beyond what any single device could know. In 2021, Vizio's average revenue per user from its SmartCast platform was just under $20 a year. Doesn't sound that much, but multiply that by 18 million active accounts. That's 360 million a year from people who really paid for the product. Vizio sold to Walmart for $2.3 billion. The financial logic was that those 18 million windows into people's living rooms were worth more than $2 billion. For context, 2.3 billion is also enough to give roughly 6.5 million people a free television. Walmart could have given 6.5 million households a free television. It would have cost them the same. Think about that. Quick pause. If this is making you look at that big rectangle thing in your living room a little differently, hit subscribe. Because this channel is all about digging into the invisible infrastructure that sits underneath the technology we use every day. The stuff that's running quietly in the background while you're just trying to watch something. And trust me, this rabbit hole goes a lot deeper. Right, I've been telling you how bad this is for a while now. So let's talk about what you can actually do. Yes, you can disable ACR. It's in the settings on every major smart TV. The location varies from brand, and they do sometimes move around with firmware updates, which is annoying. But here's the rough guide. Samsung, settings, support, terms and privacy, viewing information services. Turn it off. LG, settings, all settings, general, live plus, turn it off. While you're there, go to advertising and turn off ad tracking as well. Vizio, menu, system, reset and admin, smart interactivity, turn it off. Roku TVs, settings, privacy, smart TV experience, use information from TV inputs, uncheck it. Sony, settings, about, legal information, Samba interactive TV, turn it off. Now, caveat. Disabling ACR reduces the data your TV collects. It doesn't eliminate it. Your IP address is still being logged by the apps you use. Your viewing habits within those apps are still being tracked by the streaming services themselves. Your router logs your TV's network activity. Most effective option, and yes, this is the one where your other half looks at you, is to put your smart TV on a separate network segment with no internet and use a separate streaming stick for everything. The TV becomes dumb again. The streaming stick collects data, but it's much easier to control and audit. This is also the option where you explain to your family why the TV doesn't work anymore, and they look at you like you've lost the plot. The other option is a Pi-hole, software that runs on a small device on your network and blocks DNS requests to known data collection domains. Genuinely effective, and honestly, quite satisfying when you watch the blocked requests logs at 11 at night, when you should be in bed. Not that I'd know anything about that. The honest truth is, these mitigations help, but they don't solve the underlying problem, which is that the default state of modern smart television is surveillance, and opting out requires effort, technical knowledge, and persistence in the face of interfaces that are deliberately designed to make you not bother. That's not a configuration problem, that's a design philosophy. I want to take a moment on something before we get to the end. We live in an era of pervasive data collection. Your phone knows where you go, Google knows what you search for, Amazon knows what you nearly bought at 2 AM before you thought better of it. Most people have made a kind of peace with this. It's not great, but it feels like the price of a modern life. And there's a reasonable argument that personalised services need data, and data collection isn't inherently sinister. But the television is different, and I think it's worth saying why. Your phone is a device you carry. You choose it. You use it actively. You know it's a connected device. You have a relationship with it. Your television is a piece of furniture. You put it in your living room. You sit in front of it in the evenings. You talk in front of it. Your kids play in front of it. Your elderly parents watch it. Your guests watch it. Your most private domestic life happens in front of it. The social contract around the television is completely different from social contract around a phone. A television is something that witnesses your private life. The idea that it is also a data collection device, one that doesn't care what you're doing, only what's on screen, sending that information continuously to servers owned by companies with interests entirely different from your own, that's a different kind of intrusion. There's also the people in the room that never agreed to anything. The children that didn't consent. Your guests didn't. The babysitter didn't. The device doesn't distinguish. It sees the screen. It logs what's there, and it sends it. Right, let's bring it together. How did we let this happen? The honest answer is the same way most large-scale changes happen. Not through one dramatic decision, through accumulation. Through layers of small, individually reasonable choices that compounded into something none of the individual actors quite intended, or would admit to intending. The consumers wanted cheap screens. The manufacturers wanted margins. The advertisers wanted data. The regulators lacked the tools and sometimes the will to keep pace. The lawmakers couldn't pass meaningful legislation. The retailers didn't ask questions they didn't want answered. And the technology slipped into living rooms in the gap between what the law prohibited and what common sense suggested should be prohibited. There's a line that sums this up. The TV was never cheap because the technology improved. The TV was cheap because someone had already planned how to make money after you took it home. The price tag was subsidised. The real cost was paid in a currency you didn't know you were spending. The latest chapter, as of now, is the Texas lawsuits. Samsung settled, LG settled, Sony, Hisense and TCL are still fighting. There's a reasonable chance this produces real change. Requirements for genuine, prominent, easy to exercise consent. But I'd be cautious about assuming litigation fixes this, because the underlying economics haven't changed. A TV sold at low margin and monetized through data is still more profitable than TV sold at high margin with no data operation. And as long as that's true, there will always be pressure to collect data. The question is only whether the consent is genuine or theatrical. And here's what I keep coming back to. Your television sits in your living room. You bought it. You own it. When you close your front door, the people and the institutions and the corporations of the outside world are, in principle, kept outside. The smart TV changed that, quietly, in ways that were disclosed but not communicated, legal but not ethical, consented to but not understood. We let it happen, not through negligence exactly, through the normal workings of a system where the incentives were misaligned and nobody whose job it was to fix that did so in time. The question now is whether we let the next thing happen the same way. Because your TV wasn't the last device. Your fridge is getting smarter. Your thermostat already knows when you're home. Your car knows where you drive. Your watch knows when your heart rate goes up. Your speaker is always listening. Each of them has a reasonable pitch, convenience, personalization, features you'll actually use. But each of them is also a window, and most of them are open. Maybe the smartest thing your TV ever did was convincing you it was just a television. Right, if you found this useful or unsettling, or both, share it with someone who bought a smart TV recently and hasn't thought about any of this. Settings to disable ACR on your TV are in the description below, along with links to the primary sources, the FTC original complaint, the Texas lawsuit filings, and Vizio's actual earnings reports, so you can read them all yourself and not just take my word for it. Thanks for watching. Go check your TV settings. Bye bye.